Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker Show. This is your roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. And this week we have a quite interesting show. Getting back into looking at a few articles which are explainers, a few tutorials. We also have a fantastic project and new giveaway. Yes, we are flush with giveaways at the minute. As well as answering the eternal question. Which board should you buy? An Arduino Pro board or an ESP32 board? The internet is full of people arguing that you should use an ESP32 for absolutely everything, but should you? Anyway, that's what we're doing today in today's show, so let's get on with it. We're starting the show by looking at an article on the Electromaker website, one that might come in handy to those of you wondering what gift to get the special maker in your life. This is the Electromaker Holiday Gift Guide for 2022. So there are 10 ideas here on this list, and I'm going to spend very little time on this now. The link is in the description, and if you are coming up with ideas for what you can get people for Christmas, then yes, you might want to take a look at it. But in short, there's everything from fairly cheap things like a Raspberry Pi Pico bundle. In the past, we'd always just say to get someone a Raspberry Pi. That's obviously not the easiest thing in the world to do right now, but also the Raspberry Pi Pico represents a bit of a change in the way microcontroller boards work. Back in the day, if you wanted to get someone to start a microcontroller, you'd get them an Arduino. Now with the Raspberry Pi Pico, it's even easier. Things like the Pico and the Microbit have so many different ways that you can interact with them, and using Thonny and MicroPython is sort of the perfect first step up from visual block coding languages. So yeah, that's one of the many ideas we have in here. Of course, the Latte Panda is on the list because that's my favorite SBC of the year. And some useful things like micro SD cards. You're always going to need those kind of things, and a bunch of other ideas too, from robotics through to Arduino starter kits, and things like, yes, 3D printer filament. If you've got a 3D printer enthusiast in your life, they're always going to need filament, yeah, that's basically it. It's a holiday gift guide for any kind of maker that you might want to buy gifts for. There's a link to it in the description of the video, and of course, if you end up buying any of those things from us, it will help us out a great deal as well. Now, moving on to Hackaday and Power over Ethernet. This is an explainer article which really goes into depth as to how Power over Ethernet works, as part of a project to try and make a general purpose Power over Ethernet custom adapter board thing. I should show don't tell. So just quickly, this is the placeholder kind of encapsulation article by Jenny List on Hackaday. This is what I'll link in the description, which gives an explanation about what you're about to read. And then the link through here is to Alan's comprehensive guides to Power over Ethernet. And it is quite comprehensive. This is someone who's been working with Power over Ethernet for a while. And this specifically talks about it in the context of a project. In fact, the project is quite interesting. Let's start with that. The project is Arduino Coin, which we featured on the show before. So yes, this is a little mining rig, which uses Raspberry Pi Picos. I'm going to myself slightly out of the way there. A bunch of Raspberry Pi Picos in order to mine Arduino coins, which at least when I last reported on it was the hobby fun end of cryptocurrency. Doesn't use vast amounts of power, isn't actually, massive markets that are going to crash and money and all this stuff that makes that stressful and something I don't want to be a part of. Arduino coin is like your hobby DIY version of Bitcoin, where there isn't really much value there. If that's changed since I last looked at Arduino coin, maybe I need to look at it again, but that's my take on it at least. So the idea here is that this is learning about Power over Ethernet in order to create a perfect way of powering this rig. And I'm about 2/3 of the way through this article, and it's really nicely explained. This is how it works, and then experiments taken in order to make his own version of it, and then, of course, the version of a board that they've started to put together for it as well. So if you were ever interested in Power over Ethernet and how it works, this is a really nice primer for it because it's not just pure theory. It shows you theory and practice, it shows you using it in a design. It's genuinely just a really nice dive into the entire concept of Power over Ethernet for someone like me who is not all that familiar with the idea behind it, other than that you can power things via Ethernet. So yes, it's a fantastic write-up. I will be linking it in the description. Well, I'll be linking the placeholder page for it in the description of the video. It is a really great read, and yeah, fantastic work, Alan. I don't know if you're a viewer of the show, but if you are, yeah, this is a really, really good explainer. We're moving on now to a project from Ollie Q on the Electromaker Discord server. Now, Ollie Q is a name you may recognize because it's also the name of his YouTube channel, and we featured his channel on the show a couple of times. But this one is particularly cool. This is a fully interactive Christmas tree that you can interact with. So here it is. This is a live video feed of Ollie's tree. And if you see, if I click on this blue light here and I say I want it to be green, and then wait just a moment, it will update to be green. In fact, let's change a few of these just so we can really show off what's going on. I'll make that one red. I'll make this one pink. I'll make this blue one up here green, let's say. And you can see they are updating relatively quickly as well. This is a really interesting project, but it doesn't stop there. If you may notice, the eagle-eyed among you, that these kind of baubles look sort of interesting, and that's because these baubles are all little displays. And so if you click on any one of these displays, so let's click on this top one, you'll see there's a load of drawings, and you can come here and you can draw on it, and you can draw whatever you like. In fact, if you look down here, you'll see that someone has already drawn an EM for Electromaker. That may have been me. This is a absolutely fantastic project. There's no video on it on Ollie's channel yet. I looked just to be sure, but this is Ollie, just in case you haven't put two and two together quite yet. He's the same guy that had the remote control internet over the car. Remote control what? Remote control cars over the internet project. And there was a real life Rocket League as well. There's a bunch of stuff he's made on his channel, which is absolutely fantastic. I haven't watched this VR horror game one because VR horror games are the very idea of horror for me. I don't like horror, or I like VR, I just don't particularly like horror. But this project is absolutely amazing. These all show up on the tree. And by the way, if you do follow this project, this is another thing that Ollie mentions. You have to bear in mind that this is people over the internet who are putting whatever they want to on these baubles. So they might be something you might not want to see there. I think we're safe right now, but if we're not, I'll blur it out in editing. And you can see updates for this at Interactive Xmas. So the Interactive Xmas Twitter account basically is just a catch-all account for all of the things that happen on the tree. As it says here, quick disclaimer, anything has been drawn, a tweet out has been drawn by strangers on the internet, and it's monitored-ish. Yes, this is every hour. On the hour, it shows all the bits that have been added to it, which is kind of amazing. I do like the dolphin with guns. I'm a big fan of armed dolphins. Something you didn't know about me until today. Anyway, this is a fantastic project, Ollie, and everyone on the Discord server can just follow the link to go to it. If not, of course, this will be linked in the show description. Drop a nice Christmassy message onto one of Ollie's screens, and feel free to dip into his house to change the colour of his Christmas lights on the fly. What a great idea for a project. If you are enjoying the Electromaker Show, there are a few things you can do to help it grow. Right here on YouTube, if you click subscribe, then we will show up in the subscriptions tab on the left just over here. And if you click this little bell notification and click all, we will then also show up in your notifications on the top corner here. Having these notifications turned on is very useful if you are someone like me, who on my main account is subscribed to hundreds and maybe even thousands of channels. The select channels that I know I want to see as soon as they put out a weekly or a monthly show or whatever, I have in my notifications, so I have them listed nicely here. And whichever video you happen to be watching right now, it would also be very handy if you could click like. Although I've just realized that's a very stupid thing to say because you're clearly watching this video that I'm talking to you from right now. Either way, likes are a way of letting YouTube know that you like it as well as us, and it makes it far more likely that they will recommend it to other people. However, if you really want to support the show, there's an even more direct way that you can do it. And that is by shopping at the Electromaker shop. We have a wide selection of things from pretty much everyone. You can see these names that are running across the top of the screen currently. Yes, if you're looking for everything from Christmas gifts through to quite in-depth robotics or any kind of embedded tools, including supplies for 3D printers, you can see down here. Yes, our shop is a great place to go. We are not immune from the same problems that most people are having with stock, although things seem to be improving. And we have a massive selection of things, including I just noticed they have this presence. Getting distracted. Yes, the Electromaker store is a great place to get your Christmas presents as well as the next thing you need for your next hobby project. Consider shopping from us because it will directly support the show. And thank you so much. Moving on to a project on the Electromaker website, and this is from Naveen, who is a long-time community member of ours. Now, this is using the Nordic Nrf21540 board, and that's their range-extending board. Specifically, as it says here, this is an Arduino Uno Rev 3 compatible shield, which is used for range extending, basically. This board itself can be used with Arduino, as it says. It can be used with various other Nordic boards. I think in this case he's using a 5340 system-on-chip development board as well. Also using a Nordic Thingy 53 to control it. So before diving into anything further in the project, let's just see this thing in action.
So I am almost 450 to 500 meters diagonally away from the light, and I have a thingy which is already connected to the central device. And if I press the button, then you can see the light starts scrolling a little faster, and if I press the button again, it's moving more faster, and pressing the button once again, the lights turned off.
So, as you can see, this is a very long-distance Bluetooth low-energy connection, much longer than you'd usually expect to work like that. This is also just at the standard amplification value of 10 decibels, I think it is. There's a reason why it's there. I think in some countries, if you go above a certain decibel range in terms of amplification, you are breaking the law. In fact, I know there is someone in our comment section who is quite knowledgeable about this, who has dropped some knowledge in the comments about that when we talked about software-defined radios and things like that in the past. So, if you would like to know more about this project, head to the link in the description. You'll find a link to this project. Yes, it's by Naveen, so it's really well written up. Every one of his projects always has been. It doesn't just show you what was done and how it was achieved. It also shows you things like how to set up the toolchain, how to set up NRF Connect in order to use it, in order to make it all working. And yeah, the only other things involved here are a Type-C Grove unit for powering the strip, and then a screw terminal for actually getting to the RGB strip, and then from there to the Nrf21540 DK headers. Now, perhaps unsurprisingly, I have one of these to give away. So I'm going to be doing that as well. In fact, let's move on to the next section of the show, because this power profiling kit here is also something that we're in the middle of giving away. We have 2 Nordic competitions in 1 week. Yeah, let's get through to that. Let's announce the winner of the power profiling kit competition, and then you can also find out how you can win this. So, a couple of weeks ago, we started a contest for this Nordic Power Profiling Kit Mark II. We talked about it in context of an article that Robin had written, which is about how to cut down on power consumption in your project. And that article goes on to use the Power Profiling Kit to do exactly that. And in fact, the last project that we just looked at on this show from Naveen also uses the Power Profiling Kit just to track how much power the entire project is using. So, as with all of our contests, you had a couple of weeks to enter, and you just enter by going to the comment section, leaving a certain hashtag and saying what you are going to do with this prize if you win it. And it is now time to meet the winner. And the winner is Ralph Yamamoto. Congratulations. Yes, your Blues wireless setup will now not be drawing too much power, hopefully, when you debug exactly what is going on there. Those Blues wireless boards are really fun, by the way. The note card is something that I had in my hands briefly at one point. Of course, it was given away like everything else is on the show, but they're very cool little bits of kit. And yes, I'm sure the Power Profiling Kit will help you in your project. Just to remind everyone else as well, we do have one other ongoing project at the minute, one going contest at the minute, which is for the Inkplate 2. This is their latest design. It is a 3-color, much smaller display, as you can see, and as always, it has an ESP32 on the back, not that you can see that in this case. We will be announcing the winner of that when the Kickstarter ends. Which Kickstarter? Well, this Kickstarter. This is the Inkplate 2 Kickstarter. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago on the show. There are 13 days to go as we talk about this. And so if you would still like to enter this competition, you just leave the hashtag Inkplate2 in the comment section, along with what you will do with it if you win. But that is not the only contest. One contest ends today and another begins. And in fact, it's yet another Nordic semiconductor contest. Because yes, the last project that I showed you, which used the Nrf21540, we're going to be giving away one of those. In fact, we're not just giving away the radio extender here, we're giving away the entire development bundle, including the development board that comes with it. And since they're so nicely bagged up like this, I'm not going to take them out the bags. I'll just show you the website very briefly. As you can see, it's the Nrf21540 development bundle, which is a bundle for Bluetooth Low Energy Mesh Threads, Zigbee and 2.4 gigahertz proprietary range extension. You have the development board here, and as with all of the Nordic development boards, there's a lot on the boards themselves, but they're also Arduino Shield compatible, although you've always got to check your voltage. And here is the Shield for actually extending range, where of course you can add antennas and all that kind of stuff to it as well. So this is what you will be winning if you win, and this is exactly the same kind of contest as we normally have. If you would like to win the Nrf21540 development bundle, all you need to do is head to the comment section of this video and leave the hashtag Nrf21540. Just forget the DB. I'll just put, Nrf21540 as a hashtag, and let me know what you would do with it. In these days where there's so many new things happening, I mean, you know, Matter over Thread is a thing that now anyone can use. It is released. You can set up your own Matter network in the house, your own Thread network using Matter in the house, which also works over VLAN, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, what would you do with that and a Rage extender? I don't know. There's a bunch of ideas for projects, and I'd love to hear yours. So yes, comment section, hashtag Nrf21540, and what you would do with this development bundle if you win it, and we will be announcing the winner to that soon. We're having a very brief funding website things this week where we're just going to go back and look at a couple of things that we already looked at in the pre-launch stage that have now launched so you can see how much they cost and whether you would like to support them. And we're going back to Gliss, the thing that I talked about just on last week's show, the show before. This was a pre-launch Eurorack module, and it has already gone into crowdfunding, and I just wanted to quickly show you that. So, for a very quick reminder, Gliss is a Eurorack module that outputs various signals based on touch. It is a touch slider, but it also is pressure sensitive, and as you can see, it remembers what you do. You can make a gesture on it, it will remember and repeat that gesture. You can do multi-gestures. You can even split it up and use it as a little touch-sensitive keyboard. This is the kind of interactivity that you don't usually necessarily find with Eurorack modules. There's some really nice touch modules out there, and I'm not as familiar with Eurorack specifically as everything else. My synthesizer world has been very hard cut between whatever hardware I could afford at the time and whatever I would just emulate in software, and the mountains of build your own synthesizer equipment that I haven't had time to actually put together. I probably could have a very beautiful Eurorack setup if I actually put all of the random development tools that I bought for making a Eurorack together. But yes, children, time, it's the thing. Anyway, the really important question is, would you want to get one of these, and how much would it cost if you did? Bear in mind that this will send CV out with anything that is Eurorack compatible. You don't need to have a Eurorack setup for this. Most semi-modular synthesizers, like most of the new cheaper Behringer line as well, if you want to get into something if you really want to get into synths now, the cheap Behringer ones are a great place to start, depending on how you feel about the way that Behringer do things. But yes, Gliss is available for $139 for the unit itself. Interestingly, they're also selling all of the other Trill things on here. I have in front of me one of the Trill controllers that I used in a project a while ago. This is just essentially a little touch pad. This is like an XY pad, and funnily enough, this is the kind of things that I remember, because when I was buying little effects units and stuff many years ago, they almost all had this kind of stuff. All of the Korg effects pads had a little pad that you could sweep. But all of the Trill things are available on this crowd supply page as well. So even if you don't want to get the full Gliss experience, these are really nice plug and play devices, essentially plug and play-esque, which will allow you to add lots of really nice touch controls to almost any microcontroller project. Of course, it's designed to work with Bella and with synthesizers, but that's not what these are necessarily. This is, they're just really nice sensors. I think this is a single touch sensor, but this is a multi-touch sensor. I have a Trill bar as well. As I've said before, it's very difficult for me to talk about Bella without coming across as a fan, because I'm a big fan of the project. I have loved everything that they've made. It's my favorite music development DIY setup thing. And if you're not familiar with them, if you head to bella.io, you can find out everything that they are about. Anyway, I just wanted to go back to that one to say it is live. It's $139 if you'd like to support them. There's 53 days left on the project, and they've already got $7,000 of the $14,000 that they want. I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine, but if you are a synthesizer enthusiast, this is definitely one for you. And I'm going to spend even less time on this one because we are a little bit crushed for time, but I wanted to come back to B-Motion S3. This is another ESP32 development module, but again, this is a very specific one, and I thought it might be interesting to some of you, especially ones who have DIY smart home setups. So this is based on the ESP32 S3, and it has a built-in PIR and light sensing. It has built-in PIR and light sensing on the board. And I remember when this was in pre-launch, we had a quick look at it, and they are now going. They've just launched. They also have 53 days left. They've raised $400. They're trying to get $300 to get the board made. And it is essentially an ESP32 based board, but with a couple of nice features. It's USB Type-C. Shouldn't matter. Does matter. It has this built-in PIR sensor, which comes with a cover. So you could just slot this thing into a case or print a case for it. I don't know if they're actually selling a case for it or not. That's an interesting question. They are not. Anyway, the main reason I wanted to come back here is to say that if you were interested in this project when I first announced it, and they said they were going to start funding it, it is now available for funding, and the boards are for $30 you can get them. And before you head to the comment section and say, $30, that's a lot more than my ESP32, but yeah, it's probably not the same as your ESP32 board, because this is designed with certain things in mind. Like I say, it has this built-in sensing ability, it has built-in battery charging, it has all this kind of stuff. So if this is what you were looking for, this is definitely going to be what you want. I'll leave a link to this and Gliss in the description of the video in case you decide to support either of them. If you'd just like to know more information about it, of course, you can always enter your name into the box here and subscribe for more details. But yes, that's our funding websites for today. I just thought I'd very quickly go back to these two just to see how they were getting on. We're going to close out this week's show by looking at a couple of interesting things to do with microcontrollers, unsurprisingly, given this is the Electromaker Show. No, there's an ESP32 and Arduino comparison. There's also an STM32 bare metal guide. Before we get to that, though, self-driving tractors. Do I need to say anything more? This is an article on the Nvidia blog that someone sent me, and it is very interesting indeed. I'm not going to go through it in detail at all. I'm basically just going to dwell on the headline and say you should go and read this. It is a very interesting article, and because yes, this is a driver-optional electric smart tractor, and it's the wave of the future. It really is. I mean, it's not everywhere is going to suddenly become automated overnight, but certainly in terms of things like agriculture, where you're not talking about vehicles that are sharing the road with other vehicles, the barrier to entry to get a safe driverless vehicle that can work in agriculture is much lower than it is on the roads. And this is the first commercially available one. This is the Monarch tractor. This is a very cool looking device. These are from Nvidia, so unsurprisingly, they're using the Jetson line. I can't remember if this is the Xavier or the Orin. It must be the Xavier because the Orin's too new. Yeah, there we go. Tapping into six Jetson Xavier system and modules. The Monarch Founders Series Mark V tractors are essentially roving robots packing supercomputers. Either way. Very interesting article. I just thought I'd mention it. I'll be linking it in the description of the video. I'm really interested to see how this gets deployed, because this is going to be one of the first places where we really do see AI and self-driving stuff working. This and logistics, but we don't see logistics. We very rarely see the inside of a warehouse, and you don't see the robots moving around and doing their thing. But yeah, how long will it be before you're driving down the motorway and then you look over to your side and you see a couple of self-driving tractors just doing the work in the field? It's going to happen. It's kind of an odd feeling. Now moving on to a video on the That Project YouTube channel. This is the age-old argument about why don't you just use an ESP32? Using an ESP32 for that is the you could use a 5.5 timer for that of our age. I really do think it is, because every time someone talks about a different board or a different thing, it's like, why don't you just use ESP32? Well, here's an answer to that question. This is the more of a question, would an ESP32 do for your project based on the price compared to the Potenta H7? So this isn't a straight one-to-one comparison to other boards of a similar power to the ESP32. I remember a while ago we talked about the ESP32 versus the Raspberry Pi Pico and the various good and bad reasons you might want to use either one of those. But yes, as you're seeing on the screen right now, you're talking at $15 versus $113 in terms of price for these two boards. But when this video, basically all it does is it takes them through their paces doing various different things. So for example, this is calculating pi using the Leibniz formula on a single core, and there's various other things that it does as well. I don't think it's going to be any particular spoiler to say in the video that the Potenta H7 is way better than the ESP32 at most things, but it's also much more expensive. It's a question of what you need. And at the very end of the video, one of the things that I just point out as well is that you don't get this from an ESP32. This is just native outputting HDMI from a microcontroller based board. I mean, it is a microcontroller based board. But yes, you have your dual chips on the H7, and one of the things that the Arduino library gives you just straight out the box is fast running HDMI. So maybe that's why you want to spend the extra $98. I can't do maths. But yes, very interesting video. Head over to that project and watch it. I will link it in the description of the video. I'd be interested to hear from the perspective of the people that watch this show, is the Arduino Potenta H7 something that you find compelling? Would you spend the extra money to have that extra power, or is an ESP32 doing pretty much everything that you want it to? I imagine unless you're working in sort of hardcore digital signage, or you really want to have a very powerful microcontroller, the Potenta H7 might feel like a bit much, but I'd be interested to hear what you think. We are going to finish this week's show by looking at a bare metal programming guide for the STM32. Now, it says here it's designed with the Nucleo F429Z1 development board in mind, which has the STM32 F429 microcontroller on it. But this would work with almost any other STM microcontroller, STM32 microcontroller. Now, I found this on Hackaday, and I will leave this link in the description because, as always, this is a good wrapper for the article. It tells you exactly what you to expect when you head through to the link. And I love Hackaday, great site. But this is I think they call it an epic guide. An epic guide to bare metal STM32 programming. They're not lying. This is huge. It starts at the start with what is a microcontroller. Oh, I mean, it starts at the start by saying get this toolchain and how to download it. What is a microcontroller? How do memory and registers work? And then, how can you write to a register? That's the start of it. So you get to here and you're already talking about how you can set different ports in and out. And then it just goes on and on to various different things. Pretty much one example of everything that you would need to be able to do programming in bare metal on an STM32. Now, I am one of those people that has a slight perverse love of the idea of actually learning how to do fully bare metal microcontroller programming. I spent a lot of time fiddling around with the chip from the Arduino Uno, the ATmega328P, messing around, trying to learn how to read data sheets, trying to just make my own way of programming using a different Arduino, do it all in the command line, just using Vim, just really pushing myself to make it as horrible as I possibly could. But there's a real reason. There's a real lovely reason to do that. It's a real amazing feeling. And this goes everything from just kind of a minimal setup through to blinking LEDs, printing using the UART, and even setting up a web server along with a bunch of other stuff as well. So if you are an STM32 beginner, they're using the Cube IDE. I don't know, maybe using the Cube IDE wouldn't be that useful. For me, I found actually my first attempts at bare metal programming to be a lot easier than using anything outside of kind of a toolchain that I was already familiar with, like Platform IO, like the Arduino IDE. But yeah, if you are interested, even if you don't follow it exactly, this is a really interesting read. I'm only about less than a quarter of the way through reading it. And it's really nice because all of the things that you kind of maybe find a bit difficult about reading data sheets if you're new to this are quite nicely explained in code. And code I understand. So yes, if you're wanting to get started with the STM32, head to the link in the description, and from this link you can just head straight through to the jump to GitHub. And if you have one of these, if you don't have one of these little STM32 Nucleo boards, they're really worth it. They're cheap, and they're the best way to get used to the STM32, which is pretty much the microcontroller that runs the world at this point. That has been our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all the support that you're showing Electromaker, be that liking this show on YouTube or buying stuff from the store. As I mentioned earlier in the show, now is the perfect time to get your gifts in for Christmas if you'd like to get that perfect maker in your life, the perfect gift. Yes, we will be back with another regular show next week. After that, who knows? I'll be in England and I'll have a camera with me and a microphone, and let's just see. Maybe I'll have to film a show out in the middle of the woods somewhere in deep northern England. We will find out. But for now, I hope you have a safe, fun, and creative week, and I'll speak to you soon.